Well, good morning, everybody. Glad you are here today. So, a lot of you know how I feel about math. I don't like it. I don't like math. Now, some of you in here, you're offended because some of you in here, you love math, right? You're our accountant friends and you are glad that it's past April 15th. Like you're loving life, and that's great. And I'm not saying that math is not important. I know math is absolutely important. I'm just a people person. I don't like math. I don't like to look at numbers. And the numbers need to work, but that's not fun, right? Somebody's like, hey, here's a spreadsheet. Here's how we're doing. I'm like, that's awesome. Can we move on? Right? I mean, that's just how it is. Because I love people and I'm just not worried too much about numbers. Now, here's the deal, math is important. And so the reason I bring that up is because I want to review with you some things, a couple of symbols that you probably learned early on in elementary school in math. For example, here's this first symbol. This first symbol is called the alligator, right? The alligator mouth, and it means greater than. Remember that? You'd have one number on this side and a number on this side, and if the open end was going this way, that means it was greater than. For example, 5 is greater than 3, right? For example, right? And so that's why you'd write that. And the alligator mouth is open toward the greater one. 5 is greater than 3. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, some of you are like, oh, this is good. And some of you are like, please stop. I got past first grade, and I love it. And I didn't want to go back, right? Okay, cool. All right. Let me give you another math symbol, though. There's another math symbol that you learned that was kind of similar to this, but a completely different thing. And it was this. It was the equal sign, but crossed out, not equal. Remember that? Where you had that in between two numbers that were, well, not equal, right? For example, 100 is not equal to 1,000. And that's how you'd write that. You'd say not equal. 100 is not equal to 1,000. They're different. They're not the same. Now, some of you are like, I didn't come for math lessons today. Okay, I hear you. Why did I bring that up? Because today we're going to dig into a story that is really, really powerful, and I want to pull out some math symbols to help us understand 3 big-time truths out of this story. So, today we're beginning a brand new series called Big Stories. Not small ones, big ones. These are some stories. Over the next several weeks, we're going to dig into some of the biggest stories in the Bible. These are the stories that you probably read many, many times. You've probably heard about in Sunday school. If you grew up going to Sunday school, you've heard about these stories. Most people have heard of the stories that we're going to deal with over the next several weeks. At least people have heard of them. You may not know the story well, but you've heard of them, most likely. They're well-known, famous stories from the Bible. Okay, today is a pretty well-known story called Daniel and the Lion's Den. Right? A lot of us love these big stories, and some of us, our favorite stories are Daniel and the Lion's Den, or David and Goliath, and some of the, yes, we're going to hit all those. But today is Daniel. We're going to talk about Daniel. So I told you I'm going to give you 3 different really important truths today. Let me give you the first one before I even get into the story. Because this first truth you're going to see throughout the story of Daniel, this truth is true. And here it is. Our plans are not equal to God's plans. Your plans, my plans, human plans are not equal to God's plans. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that in my head, but I sometimes have a problem living it out, right? Because sometimes I think I'm pretty good, right? Yeah, humbly, I am one of the most humble people you will ever find. You get what I'm saying there? That's a problem. Right? Sometimes I get confused, even though I know that what I just said is true. Sometimes I don't live like it. But it is true that our plans, your plan, my plan, is never going to equal, never going to be as good, never going to be as perfect as God's plan. And you're going to see this is true throughout the story of Daniel and the lion's den. So, here's the deal. Daniel and the Lion's Den is a really long story. Did you know that? It's really long. The entire chapter 6 in the book of Daniel. And so I'm not going to read it. It would take about a third of my time. And some of you are like, well, we don't want that because we know it wouldn't take a third of your time. You just keep going. That's true. So I'm sparing you that problem by not reading this story, but I do want to summarize and give you some context so we know the whole story before we unpack it, okay? So let me summarize the story. The Israelite people, they are conquered by an empire called Babylon. The Babylonians come in, conquer them, and as a part of that conquest, they take some of the best and the brightest of the Jewish people, of the Israelites, and they carry them off into slavery, essentially, exile into their capital city. And the reason is because the king wants the best and the brightest to serve him directly. He wants them to be their leaders, some of their leaders in the new empire, the Babylonian Empire. And so this happens. They conquer them. They carry off some of the best and the brightest into the capital city, and these people are forced into servitude to the Babylonian king. Well, fast forward, a new regime takes over the Babylonians called the Persians. The Persians conquer the Babylonians, and they keep the best and the brightest in the empire. And so the Israelites do not get to return to Israel. They have to stay in exile, forced servitude now to the Persian king. Okay? Fast forward again. Daniel is one of those guys. Okay, Daniel is one of those guys who was forced to serve the king, the first the Babylonian king, and now the Persian king. His name is Darius. In history, if you look him up, by the way, he'd be known as Cyrus the Great. But in the Bible, he's known as King Darius. And so Daniel is serving this Persian king. And he does really, really well. He's a great leader, right? It's like everything he touches just is amazing. And so the king begins to elevate him. More and more and more. And what happens when somebody gets elevated? Well, it's the same way when somebody announces at work that somebody's getting a huge promotion. You're like, yay! Yay! Why did they do that? I can't believe that. I deserve that promotion. You deserve that promotion. I'm sure that never happens at work. Never. Right? But that's what happens. Everybody's jealous of Daniel. Like, Daniel's awesome. Daniel this, Daniel that. I'm Daniel. Right? And they're angry. And so they figure it's time to take Daniel out. But they can't really figure out a good way to do it. And so they attack where they know he will not cave his faith. They attacked his faith, his religion. And they trick the king, the Persian king, into making a law for 30 days that says you cannot pray to any god or any deity except the king. If you pray, you have to pray to the king. Well, this is a problem for Daniel because he knows he can only pray to the one true God. So this law doesn't work. He can't uphold this law. And so he prays anyway. The officials who were trying to get him, they tell the king. The king realizes he has to uphold the law, so he arrests Daniel. The punishment, as written by the law, was to throw this person into the lion's den. They would starve lions on purpose so that as soon as they threw them in, they would just devour them. And so they throw Daniel into the lion's den. They seal it. The next morning, the king runs to the den, opens it, calls down to Daniel. Daniel's like, we're good. I'm paraphrasing. You understand? He doesn't literally say that in Scripture. We're good, right? And he pulls him out. And he gets promoted even more than he did before. It's an awesome story. Now, what I want to do is I want to go through the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now, I want to unpack some pieces. I can't read the whole thing, but we're going to see some pieces of this story. And we're going to learn a couple more truths. I already gave you the first of the three. Our plans, your plans, are not equal to God's plans. But then there's another truth, and here's the next one that you're going to see. Consistency is greater than momentary passion. Really, really important in our culture today. We like to elevate momentary passion. Instagram Reels rule the day. We all know they do. YouTube videos rule the day. You know why? Because we're like, wow, that guy's awesome because he does the things and he's doing the things. You're like, whoa, share, that's amazing. This is hilarious. I get 2,700 reels from my wife every day. I may have exaggerated slightly. I'm not saying it's bad. She just loves them. And I'll be honest, they are funny. I saw the funniest one yesterday. I'm not going to share it, but it was hilarious. Okay, so I get it. I live in the same world you do. I get it. But let me just tell you, we need to learn and start practicing the understanding, the truth that consistency is far better than momentary passion. Here's the deal. The Persians conquered the Babylonians. Daniel's still in servitude to the king. Now he's in serving a different empire, the Persians. And so the Persians want to reorganize the empire. They're like, those Babylonians, they didn't know what they were doing. And so they want to reorganize. Listen to what happens. Daniel chapter 6, starting with verse 1. Darius the Mede, this is King Darius, this is the king of the Persians, decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and two others as administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interests. So just pause there because it's important. They divide this huge empire into 120 provinces, high official over every one of those. So there's 120 of them. And then the king promotes 3 people to be over those 120. So think like COO, CEO, C whatever, OO, CC whatever. Okay, whatever we would call it back then. They didn't have those terms in the ancient world, but that's what it is. Direct reports, right, to the 120. King, 3 guys, 120, everybody else. Okay? Daniel's one of the 3. It's important. Okay? So the king elevates Daniel over this, all right? Now remember, what are we talking about? Consistency is greater than momentary passion. Let me read what happens to Daniel. Verses 3 and 4. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Like King Daniel, everybody else. Okay? Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs. Can I just say, politics? Have you guys ever seen that? Maybe not. First time for everything, then. They were looking for fault in the other politician. Interesting. But then it says, what? But they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. Anybody want to find one of those kind of leaders? Now remember, the high officers, they need to attack Daniel because they can't find any fault, they can't find any problem, they can't find any flaw, they can't find any lies, they can't find any manipulation, they can't find anything wrong with him. They're like, this guy is ridiculous. And so we need to attack him where we know he will not be able to give in. And so we're going to attack his faith. And so they go to the king, they trick him, right, into passing a law that says you can only pray to the king. They know they've got him. So what does Daniel do? Fast forward to verse 10. This is what happens. So he just found out that this law has been passed, that's been signed by the king. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. I'm about to get offensive. I want to call out what Daniel didn't do. Daniel didn't grab a protest sign and hit the streets. Sorry, he didn't. I'm not necessarily saying that's bad. I'm just saying Daniel didn't do it. Read what you want. He didn't go on social media. I'm sorry, I brought everybody in on that one. And bash everybody he could because of this stupid law that clearly hinders his freedom. Didn't do it. Now, some of you are like, they didn't have social media back then. I know, but they had versions, right? Whatever it was. He would go to the local pub and be like, did you hear about that stupid law? Tell all your friends. It's essentially what we do, right? He didn't gather his friends and he didn't start bashing the government. He didn't do any of that. What did Daniel do? Daniel didn't do anything different. Nothing. He went home and he opened his windows toward Jerusalem because that's his home. That's where his family is. And he longs to be with them. And like he does every day, 3 times a day, he prays with the windows open. He could have closed them because he needed to hide, but he didn't. He opened the windows, he prayed like he did every other day. He didn't change a thing. Why? Because consistency is greater than momentary passion. See, Daniel was consistent. He was faithful. And even the king noticed. So Daniel eventually is arrested. He's thrown into the lion's den. But before they put the rock in place, the stone in place, the king says something to Daniel, which is very interesting. I'm going to read it down to verse 16. He says, so at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. Did you catch that? The king recognizes that Daniel is as faithful as it comes, as it gets, to his faith in his God. He calls it out. He says, may your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. The reason he says that at the end is 2 reasons. One, the king recognizes that Daniel is faithful, but he's not sure if God's going to be faithful to him. Do you catch that? He's not sure. He's not sure. He's heard some of these other stories, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace and all kinds of stuff. He's heard of that. That was the Babylonians, by the way. And so I'm guessing the Persian king heard about that, but he didn't experience it. And so he's not even sure if it's true. And so he's not sure if this God who Daniel serves is going to be faithful to rescue him. There's a second reason, though, because this king, he wants Daniel to be rescued. This is his best leader. And he's been tricked. He's been manipulated to kill him. And he doesn't want it to happen. See, why is Daniel his best leader? Because consistency rules the day. And it needs to rule your day as well. Consistency, faithfulness, above all else. Above all else. So, the tech team knows this because I had to make all kinds of changes this morning, but I'm going a different route here for a minute. So my mom is visiting my grandfather, her dad, down in Indiana this week. And she sent a really amazing email yesterday morning. And when this happens, by the way, and I know what I'm preaching on, and I read it, and I'm like, oh, yeah. I gotta do that, don't I? God, I need to put that in. Okay. My tech team's not going to enjoy me this week, right? But that was one of those things. And so I was reading this email, and this email was basically my mom telling me about my grandfather's morning routine. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, you know? And so I'm reading, I want to just tell you my grandfather's morning routine, okay? My grandfather wakes up in bed, right? But he doesn't get out of bed right away. He stays in bed for, I don't know, a handful of hours, for a little while, maybe it's not even hours, but he's in bed for a while. But he's not sleeping, he's not lounging, he's not resting, he's not watching TV. You know what he's doing? He checks the news, he checks the stock market. My grandpa was a really good businessman, and so he is very interested in how the world is going, right? He checks the news, stock market, he checks the weather, right? Anybody else check the weather? Like for saying, you know? Yeah, I get it. So he checks the weather, he does all that stuff. Next, and that's probably somewhat normal for some of us. Okay, this is where we diverge, okay? After that, then he checks his blood pressure. He checks his own blood pressure. And get this, and some of you are like, oh, I mean, that's not that crazy, right? No, but he has a spreadsheet that tracks his blood pressure that he holds on his computer, and he plugs it in every morning. Anybody do that? Probably not. Welcome to my family. But that's what he does. And he sticks it in this spreadsheet. Then after that, you know what he does? He gets on his stationary bike and he exercises. And then he does some strength training for himself, right? And it's just amazing, right? He accomplishes more in the first couple of hours of his day than I do probably all day. And he's my grandfather. It's amazing. He's beating me, and he's not even trying hardly. He's got it. This is his consistent routine. Now, here's the deal. I didn't tell you the most important part of his morning routine. Okay? So along with this email that my mom sent, she sent a picture, and I asked for permission to use this picture. In fact, I was going to edit the picture. I did a little bit, but my grandpa and my mom said, "No, you can just use the picture." I'm like, "Okay." So I did. I'll tell you why I edited it here in just a minute. But this is a picture of my grandpa. I'll go ahead and put it up there in bed with his whole setup. Just so you know, he actually did all that. No joke. I'm not kidding. He is the one that put all that together. Right? Isn't that awesome? He wakes up and he does all of this from like right there. I mean, he even has coffee. It's just there. It's amazing. Right? Now, I did blur out the monitor, and here's why. Right? Because the most important part of his morning routine is this: his personal devotion time with God. He digs into Scripture, he reads it, he studies it. Then he prays. He talks to God, he allows God to talk to him for a long time. And one of the most powerful pieces of his morning routine, his devotional time, his personal time, this is Grandpa and God. Nobody else, Grandpa, God. God, Grandpa. One of the most powerful things that he does on that screen, if I had not blurred it out, but I had to, are all of his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren, all their phone numbers, all their email addresses right there, right in front of him. That's literally what he's looking at right there. And he goes through and he prays for everyone every morning. And then, you know what's really cool? By the way, I had to blur it out because I'm sure my family would appreciate you guys not having all their numbers, right? And addresses and everything. But he can click on their name, and you know what comes up? There's a letter that he scanned from all of us. This last Christmas, Grandpa Hoover asked all of us for one gift. He said, "I just want you to write a letter letting me know how you're doing with God, what your true personal faith is with God, or what your struggle is with God. Just tell me where you're at." Wrote a personal letter to him. He scanned all those letters. He reads them often, and he can click on them at any time, and he can pray over us. And he does every day. Consistently. Every day. I'm just here to say that my grandpa, he's leaving a legacy that is amazing. Now, catch this. My grandpa's 98 years old. He's more consistent and faithful than just about anybody I know below his age, including me. His legacy is his faithfulness to his wife, my grandma. She passed many, many years ago. His faithfulness to his family, his faithfulness to his work. He was an unbelievably influential businessman, powerful, amazing, but faithful and trustworthy. But more than anything, Grandpa is faithful to Jesus. Every morning, that's his priority. That's what's most important above everything else. And it's been that way his whole life. Consistency is greater than momentary passion. We need to hear this. We need to live this. We need to know this. There's another truth, last one, the third one that I want to bring to you that comes out of Daniel in the lion's den. And it is this: God's faithfulness is greater than our fears or our troubles. God's faithfulness is bigger, it's stronger, it's better than anything you will face, anything you're facing, no matter what it is. God's faithfulness is better than whatever you're struggling with right now. 100%. And this is seen in the story of Daniel. Remember the law. Law is passed. You can't pray to anybody except the king, but we know Daniel does it anyway. I want to read for you what happens with Daniel and the lion's den and all that stuff. Going back to verse 16. We've heard this part already. So at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seal of his nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. He knew he had condemned an innocent man to death. He knew. And he had lost one of his best leaders. He knew. He was struggling. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish. He's in anguish. He thinks he's not going to be there. "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" I love this part. Daniel answered, "Long live the king." He's still trying to be respectful to this guy, right? Even though he threw him in a lion's den. "Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty." I love how Daniel added that last part in. I'm faithful to God. God is faithful to me. Oh, and by the way, I never did anything wrong to you. Get me out of the lion's den. It's fair. It's fair, right? And so the king pulls him out and elevates Daniel. Now, I had a whole nother point that I literally deleted this morning, and it's talking about God's justice. You probably don't want to hear this part. I'm not going to talk about it, but I probably shouldn't even throw it out, but it is true. At the end of this story, you know what happens? It's pretty brutal. The king takes Daniel out and takes all the officials who tricked him and manipulated him and throws them and their families into the lion's den. I don't have time to get into this, but I will say the Sunday school nice version of this is usually told, and we leave that part out. I'm just saying that at some point, whether it's human-wise or God-wise, justice will happen. And justice sometimes is brutal. So Daniel is saved. He is protected. And here's the truth we need to know. No matter what storm you're facing, no matter what fire you're walking through right now, God is on the throne. God is faithful. God is there. God is with you. This world, because of sin, this world is broken. We have to face a lot of messy, awful, hard stuff. Trust me, I know. But God declares, I can't promise that you're going to be free of problems. We're going to be free of pain. But I can promise, God says, I will be with you wherever it is and whatever it is. I'm there. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. Walk with me. Whatever you're facing. See, God saved Daniel from the lion's den. And we think, wow, God saved Daniel from the lion's den. And Daniel probably was faithful because God showed up, because God saved him from the lions miraculously. And some of you are thinking, I'm calling this out, some of you are thinking, man, if God would just do a miracle in my life, I'd trust him. Oh, he has done a miracle in your life. You're here. You're alive. That's a miracle already. As soon as you're, boom, miracle, life. But beyond that, I think we forget that not all was good in Daniel's life. Just because he was spared from the lions, he's still a slave in exile in the Persian Empire. He longs to go home. He wants to be with his family, and he is forced to serve a king that doesn't believe like him, does things that are horrible. I mean, he just threw a whole bunch of people and their families into the lion's den. Notice that Daniel didn't seek revenge. Humans do. Now you're getting pieces of that point that I was going to make, aren't you? I just can't let it go. Daniel knows God is faithful, and Daniel knows I need to be faithful as God is faithful to me. That's it. You know what God's faithfulness does? You know what it does? God's faithfulness holds us steady in the storms. Anybody notice that we had a little bit of a stormy week this week? Wow. How many tornado warnings can we get in Wisconsin? Right? Oklahoma, they're like, that's a normal week. Right? But for us, that's not normal. I don't know about you. I'm like, okay, sirens again. Let's go downstairs again. Right? Whatever storms come, whatever happens, God's faithfulness holds us steady, anchors us here. Let me try to illustrate this. So just a handful of weeks ago, my family and I, we were down in Florida, and one of the things that my oldest son, Jackson, wanted to do is he wanted to go jet skiing. And so we rented some jet skis, and we went out on the ocean. It was actually not the open ocean, it was the bay that was connected to the ocean. Still beautiful, all kinds of the sea creatures there. I have a picture, here's a picture of Jackson and I. I mean, look at that water, right? I mean, it was amazing. There were dolphins that all of a sudden we'd be like, and we'd stop and like, whoo, there they are. I'm like, whoa, dolphin. It was just amazing. It was an amazing day. Well, if you open up the storage container in one of those jet skis, you would find an anchor. This is kind of what the anchor looked like. A little circular, some of you probably have seen this, some of you have these on your boat, okay? It's a small boat anchor, okay, with a little rope. So if we wanted to kind of hang out, put the jet ski and go swimming or do whatever we want, we just drop the anchor down, the jet ski stays there. It's amazing. The waves are doing the dolphins are going, things are flying over, like loving it, but the jet ski stays, which is really good, by the way, because we were a long ways from any land, right? But let me show you another anchor. Let me show you this next anchor. This next anchor is huge. Look at the people standing on there. Right? You've got 2 on there. They could fit several more. Okay? Now, this anchor is for this ship, the USS Harry Truman, an aircraft carrier. Okay? Massive anchor. Amazing, right? Now, here, let me bring it up this way. Okay? Let's go back to that ship. Okay? Let's say that you have this ship, but you have this anchor. Why do we laugh? Because we know that's dumb, right? That anchor is not gonna do a thing. It's just gonna be like, you know, hold on. And the ship just keeps floating, right? There's no way that anchor does any good for an aircraft carrier. It's not gonna happen. And yet, as human beings, you know what we do? We try to anchor our life with small boat anchors. We try to anchor our life on a person. I'm gonna marry my soulmate, and that person's gonna be my lifeblood. He's my hope, she's my hope. They better not be, because it's a small boat anchor. I'm sure they're wonderful. Those of you don't look at anybody right now, and you're like, small boat anchor. You're just causing more problems for yourself. I'm saying what I'm saying, don't make it worse. Okay? Small boat anchor. My wife, small boat anchor. I love her. I will die for her. She would for me. I know this. But we're small boat anchors. She cannot stake her life on mine. I can't stake mine on hers. 100%. And if you do, and if you are, you better stop. Because you're like an aircraft carrier. Can you imagine? Your life is huge. Like, it is amazing. It's complex. It's difficult. Anybody struggle with life sometimes? I do. I'm more like an aircraft carrier. Probably one on fire, right? Some of you are like, yeah, I hear you there. Dumpster fire, right? And yet we try to anchor our life on a person, on a job, on a career, on money, on a drink, on a drug. We try to stay steady with a small boat anchor, and our life just keeps plowing ahead. And the anchor's like, I got nothing. Because you need an anchor for the size of your life. that's bigger than your life. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. Because no matter what you face, no matter what you're going to hit, consistency, faithfulness toward God, but more importantly, God's faithfulness toward you is your massive anchor, so that no matter what the storm is, no matter what the fire is in your life, you will stay steady and you will not be shaken. All of this is in Scripture, by the way. You will not be shaken. Where's your foundation today? Now, some of you might say, I just don't know. I mean, is this really true? Let me get really personal with you for a minute, okay? I'm going to try to kind of help you understand this on a very real level. So I want to show you a picture. You can go ahead and put it up. This is a picture of my dad and my oldest son, Jackson. I love this picture. My dad is showing the joy that he lived with in that picture. It's also a hard picture because this is 5 days before he would pass. He was feeling great that night. 2 days later, he would go into the hospital. 2 more days and he was gone. From this picture. This was the hardest storm that I know my family have ever walked through. For sure. But one thing I know is true, and you can see it there. Jackson was little. It's crazy. One thing that is true, a couple of things that are true, is that my parents, my dad, my mom, I know my mom's down in Indiana. She couldn't be here today. Normally she'd be on the keys behind me. Susanna's doing a great job. She's awesome. But my mom and my dad, they're faithful. They've been faithful my whole life. Never wavered. I didn't say they were perfect. They're not perfect. But they have been steady my entire life. They've always been there. They loved each other well. Showed me what it looks like. They loved me and my brother really well. They love our wives. They love our kids, their grandkids. But you know where their faithfulness comes from? Their faithfulness comes from the faithfulness that they have understood and they have felt and they have experienced from God. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but my dad did not really experience faithfulness earlier on in his family, in many ways. But he changed that course. He broke that cycle. On my mom's side, same thing. There was a cycle of alcoholism, rampant. My great-grandfather, not the one picture I showed you, my great-grandfather broke that 3 generations ago. It was evil. It was destroying our family. But somebody gave their life to Jesus and then led everybody else to Jesus, and here we are. I don't think I'm a pastor otherwise, honestly. It's not that they can give me the faith, but they can influence it. Yes? And so no matter what you're facing, here's what I know, is my parents have showed what it means to stay steady, to be consistent, to never waver in their faith. Not perfection, but to be steady and faithful. And God has been faithful. Even when my dad went through those last 2 months of his life, God was faithful. We sang God's praises around his bedside in the final hours. We did. We sang worship songs. Many of them. I don't know how many we sang, but we sang for a long time. God is faithful. So any of you in here, you put on a brave face this morning. That's great. But some of you are facing hard stuff. And my question to you is, what is your anchor? Where are you anchoring your life to? Are you anchored to a small boat or are you anchored to the huge anchor of Jesus? His promises are true. He's good. He's perfect. He's faithful. He's there. Do you believe it? Do you trust it? Will you put your hope in him today? Not sometime, today. I mentioned this last week. Get off the fence. Some of you have been on the fence too long. You've been trying to hold on to a small boat here and another person and a career and a job. You're like, ah. What if you just went and just wrapped your arms around the anchor? His name is Jesus. What if you did that today? He's big enough. He's strong enough. A promise. I can promise because God promises if you get to the end of your life, whenever that is and however that is, if you know and trust that God is faithful, then he will show you how faithful he is. But you got to trust it. You got to choose and say yes. Will you today? God invites all of us to do that. It's up to you. His promises are true. They are good. Will you follow him? Let's pray. Lord Jesus, you are so good. You are so faithful. Even when hard things come our way, Lord, even when hard things come our way, you are trustworthy. You are good. You are there. You are with us. You haven't promised a trouble-free life, but you have promised one where you are there with us no matter what. And so if there's anybody in here who has never said yes to you and really taken on those promises, I pray they would do that this morning, right now, today. They would say yes to you, Jesus, right now. And that they would, maybe they need to do as a connect card, or they maybe to talk to me or somebody else afterwards and say, hey, I wanted you to know I gave my life to Jesus today. And we're gonna help you, we're gonna walk you. But God, right now, this is the moment where, God, would you just remind them, you are faithful, you are there. Help them to realize that your promises have been offered to them and they simply need to say yes. And as we sing this last song, may you be glorified, may you be honored, and may we surrender our life to you again. Maybe we already have, we need to do it again. Maybe we've never done it, we need to do it for the first time. God, help us just wherever we are with you, help us to be honest. Because you are faithful, and we desperately need you. Thank you for your promises. They are good. We pray and we ask all of this in your name, Jesus.